So I'll be talking about LAN design. So this is mostly discussion in uh, theoretical. So we all know LAN. We all know the basic now. We've been doing a lot of laboratories and we're dealing with different topologies, configuring networks, assigning IP addresses, etc. So now I want to discuss the different topics involving the proper design for a local area network, and then scaling up your network, connecting multiple local area network, and then creating a one, etc., etc. Okay, so these are some of the objectives. So the campus wired LAN design, uh, network device selection. It's a very important topic. So let's start with the campus wired LAN. Okay, so like what I've been telling before, so there will be instances wherein we will be needing to scale up the network. Maybe you started with a small company today, a small implementation today, but later on you will be looking at a bigger perspective wherein you would want to scale up your network, you would want to create more branches for your company, you would want to connect them. Okay. So these are some of the pointers, mostly guides on how you're going to do that. So you need to expect some or different types of traffic in your network. You will be looking at different application, the different requirements, bandwidth requirements for your um, applications, and you want a stable network. If you are into e-commerce, then most probably you'll be looking again into a more responsive type of network wherein there are different clients involved. There are clients who are using different devices, so you would want to cater them, etc., etc. So, like what the slide shows, you need to have supports for those um, needs from your big business. And on top of that, you need to have control. You want to have control on your network implementation. Okay. So there is a design model here, which is actually being promoted by Cisco, the hierarchical network design. So it is actually a design composed of three layers. So the access layer, the distribution layer, and the core layer. So there is a separate discussion for this one, but I'll give you an overview. Then the hierarchical network design implements a redundant um, network wherein you have to consider, or wherein it is considering the responsiveness of your network, the robustness of your network. Look, you are looking at into, I used the term redundant before because we are looking at the redundant connection, so that whenever you encountered a failure domain or some failure in your network, not everybody in the network will be affected. So for example, look at the diagram there. So we have here the hierarchical network design, and you can see that um, it is connected to the internet, two source of internet connection. internet connection. So in this case, even if one of these service providers fail, di ba? Like the settings here. What if you are connected to PLDT and you're connected to Globe, for example, or Converge? If one of your ISP fail, you have a backup. The same is true with the other layers. One part of the um, layer fails, there is always redundancy. So look at these devices connected here on the second device on the right, and then also connected here. So looking at this implementation, there's also a redundancy of port, what we refer to as the Ether channel. Later on, I'll be talking about that. Um, and everything else. So we are into um, making your network robust in a way that it is not that affected by the different failure domain. Actually, one of your objectives should be identifying the failure domains. Knowing where an error might occur is already a good preparation for you to at least have a backup plan just in case. Okay, just in case. So first, we have the core layer. Core layer, ano bang meron sa core layer? It is the layer wherein high speed yung internet connection, or in rather the flow of traffic is considered high speed. So most probably all your servers are connected there, and the internet, of course, should be connected there. Other gateways are connected there. So ano dun lahat. Now, aside from the core layer, we also have the distribution layer. The distribution layer now is again another layer that is usually used to manage most of the partition in your network, how you want the network to be controlled, or how you you want your network to be managed. So we can do that using the distribution layer. So parang for example, you have a lot of departments. You would want to create multiple routers for different department, and then do some or implement some rules or policies based on the department. And then for the lower part, you have the access layer. Sa access layer naman, mostly this is where you connect. This is where you distribute. I'm sorry for using the term distribute, but this is where you give your clients connections. So dito mo sila kinoconnect. Usually for a certain building, you have an access layer switch in a in a room para may connect mo sila doon. Okay? That is the hierarchical design model. So what's the purpose? What are the objectives that we want to consider? So of course, one is scalability. You don't want to create a network design wherein ang hirap niyang i-scale up. You want to add more branches now, or you want to connect your let's say for example, your business is growing, and then you decided to create a branch. So nag-create ka ng branch on somewhere out there. And then you decided na I want to connect my branch there so I can control all the data, so I can manage all the data from this branch. So I just need to assign the manager there, and I can do the monitoring, etc. all the resources can be pulled out here. The server will be stationed here, something like that. So you would want your network to be able to cater such kind of changes. Okay? Nagkaroon ng malaking pagbabago eh. Nagkaroon ka bigla ng branch and then niisip mo, oh, ang dami mo ng plano and then what if you're planning to put another branch from other towns, di ba? So that is one thing you would want to consider. Dapat you can easily do that. Not like meron ka existing network and then after all of a sudden you plan on scaling up your business and then eventually ay, hindi ko na pwedeng gawin. I can't do that anymore. Why? Because I'm limited to these kinds of devices. I need to change the devices, buy new ones to be able to cater changes. So that's actually waste of resources. So sometimes you would want to invest, but it really depends on the situation. We all know that. Okay. So there, what we are considering is scalability. So you would want to consider modular equipments, industry grade equipments, or what they are referring to as enterprise equipments. You would want to invest. Okay, and then syempre, the hierarchical network, you would want to consider that para later on you'll just be dealing with different modules. If you would want to if you want to use the different Cisco switches, for example, they have um, devices wherein it can cater your demand now, and then later on you would want to upgrade. You just need to add modules, or you just need to add a new stack for a switch, etc., etc. There are cases like that. May mga ganong devices sa those devices are actually in existence sa Cisco. Okay. So later on, you'll be thinking about moving from IPv4 to IPv6. What if the government already implemented IPv6 and you would want to um, avail that opportunity? Then dapat you can do the scaling up easily. Okay. Okay, so most of these devices, you would want to consider them para maging madali yung pag-scale up natin when it comes to uh, business changes. Aside from scaling up, you also want to plan redundancy. Like what I mentioned a while ago, isa-isa na natin eh. So, one of the most important part of planning a network is the redundancy. Okay? So, you don't want your network to encounter a single point of failure, di ba? So, what if you have an interconnection from three buildings and then you connected building A to building B and then building B to building C? What if building B failed? So there will be cases like that. What if building B's equipment failed? So definitely the entire network is messed up. So ayaw nating mangyari yon. So you would want to implement redundancy like building A is connected to building B at the same time building A is also connected to building C. And then also, C is connected to B. Something like that. Parang mesh yung topology. Everybody is interconnected, but not necessarily lahat. Okay? Not necessarily all. So sometimes it depends on your strategy. So maybe sometimes it's wiser to create a centralized cloud wherein you could connect some of the branches there if it's really that big, or if you are dealing with just a wide area network na parang metropolitan area network lang ang dating, then you're creating buildings from one town to another town, or let's say one area, the geographically separated areas, then maybe you can find a way that can be both practical and cost efficient. Um, Practical in the sense that uh, I don't need too much redundancy. I just need this kind of redundancy so that when there is this failure from a device, then I can still recover easily without spending too much time, something like that. Okay. Now, um, I think you already know. You're already getting the point. You want to interconnect devices strategically in such a way na even if one fails, other will still function. Something like that. So we have some implementation in Cisco wherein you would want to connect multiple switches, but because of redundancy, there will be issues later on. But there are also solutions like the STP, spanning tree protocol. So for managing the network traffic, okay, meaning yung redundant path. You don't need to create multiple redundant paths because when somebody broadcasts, there is a rule in terms of broadcasting, right? You need to send all the messages from all point except from the point of origin. And then because of that, if you're going to observe your network, a lot of packets will travel everywhere, and then duplication may happen. So those are some of the issues later on. Pupuntahan din naman natin yon. Okay, so I've been talking about failure domain. So ano ba yung failure domain? It is actually an area in the network wherein there is a possible hardware failure, or it can also be um, software failure. And if that kind of failure happens, who will be impacted? So, sino yung mga apektado? So, will your entire network be impacted? So, there will be questions like that. But the solution is actually very simple. You just need to implement multiple redundant links. Okay? Kung isa lang dati yung cable mo, gawin mong dalawa. Diba? Then, you're good to go. So, wala ka nang puproblemahin. But, it's not really that easy. Later on, you'll be looking at it uh, in a perspective wherein you're also considering the costs. Okay. So let's skip that presentation. So one of the solution to that is the Ether channel. So what does Ether channel do? Actually, Ether channel is an implementation wherein you will be using multiple ports. For example, you're using fast Ethernet and then fast Ethernet 01, let's say 01, and then connecting to other switch using also fast Ethernet 01. Then eventually you found yung you find your um, port density. I mean yung bandwidth na kaya niya kasi fast Ethernet lang yon, na hindi it's not enough to cater all the bandwidth requirements traveling to your network. So in cases like that, pwede kang gumawa ng isa pa. You can use another port, and then you configure that. So around two ports na, you can configure that to be acting as one. Okay, that is Ether channel. even if you are using multiple ports like 5 ports, 6 ports, 7 ports, once you configure that to become an Ether channel, then what will happen is it will be considered as a single connection. Logically, virtually, it is a single connection, but it is composed of multiple cables. The good thing about that is combined lahat ng bandwidth, and at the same time, um, once a cable mag-fail man yung isang cable, the other cable are still functional. Mababawasan lang yung bandwidth. Just small amount of bandwidth. Okay? Not compared to a single cable, tapos nilakihan mo lang yung bandwidth like you're using gigaport, tapos nag-fail yung although it's not most likely to happen, pero nag-fail yung cable, wala na, di ba? So there's an advantage for Ether channel. Okay, another way of expanding the access layer is to use wireless LANs, wireless routers. Alam nyo na yan, you have that at home. You know the advantages, diba? If I'll be asking you, do you want to have a network wherein cabled lahat? Gusto nyo ba yon yung ganon? Cable yung gamit nyo for your cell phones, cable yung gamit nyo for your laptop, cable yung gamit nyo for the TV, cable yung gamit nyo para sa tablet, cable lahat, di ba? So there are limitation of course, and you who would want to uh, have a cable following or putting it anywhere you want, just in case you'll be at the dining area. There are cable there ready for you to connect, and not to mention you're always disconnecting unless you want the cable to be long enough to be carried anywhere in the house. Hindi mo naman gagawin yon. So there is a big advantage of the wireless LAN. There's a disadvantage because the bandwidth is smaller. But talking about technology now, we are already into wireless AX. That's really a big um, bandwidth provider for compared to the current wireless G. May naka G pa ba? N? Okay, wala naman na siguro. Usually N siguro. AX na usually. Ay AC na usually. So even phones and laptops now, if we're going to look at the IEEE 802.11, 'di ba? We are looking at the support for 802.11 AC, 'di ba? Sa AC na tayo. Titingnan natin doon, makikita nyo, they support NG, AC, AX. So, kung bibili kayo ng mga bagong devices, ang gugustuhin nyo, of course, are those who supports AX pataas. Okay? So, we are into wireless now. I know everybody knows the advantage of wireless. You can go anywhere, walang hassle-free. So all you need to do is a network interface card for every devices, and we have that in our phones. We have that in our gadgets, devices na may nakakonect sa internet. Okay, you also would want to fine tune your routing protocols. So there are advanced routing protocols, not just yung mga basic na ginagamit natin before, yung static and RIP. Of course, static has the advantages. RIP hindi na ganong nagagamit because of the long convergence time. So meron tayo sa link state, which is the OSPF, and sa distance vector meron din naman tayo, which is the EIGRP. And the good thing is hindi na proprietary ang EIGRP, it's already declared by Cisco, free na siya. Okay, free na siyang gamitin. So non-Cisco devices can already use EIGRP. So meron tayong single area, multi-area, etc. So we can consider using proper is it safe to say proper routing protocol? So I'll just say advanced routing protocols. Okay. How to select device? So that is a one big question. What are the consideration when you are selecting device? Mag-start tayo sa switch. From switches. So there are different types of switches. Okay? There are actually five categories for the enterprise switches: the campus LAN switches, the cloud managed switches, the data center switches, the service provider switches, and the virtual networking switches. But those kinds of switches are mostly for enterprise, and from the name itself, we already know saan siya ginagamit. What we want to understand are the different factors if you are going to select a switch. So, bibili ba ako ng fixed switch because it's cheap, mura lang, or I'll go with modular switch na pwede kong dagdagan ng modules pag nabitin ako. Let's say una, I'll be using 8 ports and then or 16 ports. Then later on, I would I want to add or I want to add additional 24 pa halimbawa nag-start ako ng 24. Then I'll add another 24 pag kinulang. Or should I just buy a cheap switch, a 24 port switch, mura, pero later on if I want to expand my network, bebenta ko na lang siya and then buy a new one, a 48 port switch. So may mga ganong factors. Or should I go for stackable or non-stackable? Pag-usapan natin later on what's stackable and non-stackable. Okay, you also want to consider yung thickness ng switch because you'll be mounting them to your racks, di ba? Kaya lang, ang number one factor, of course, is cost and port density and reliability. So, syempre, kung ikaw yung gagawa ng or magko-configure ng network, gusto mo reliable. At the same time, gusto mo mura. Ayaw mong bumili ng napakamahal. Bibili ba kayo ng switch worth 80,000? Tapos 8 port lang siya. Diba? May mga ganong questions. Pero, the good thing is, modular siya. At nako-configure mo siya. Eh, yung mga fixed switch, hindi mo naman nako-configure. Kung anong meron sila, plug and play lang. Kung anong meron sila, yun na yun. That's it. So, or also the port density. Pero pag-usapan natin isa-isa yung mga yan. Let's start with port density. It's the number of ports available dun sa switch. Kung ilan ba yung ports na meron siya. Kailangan ko, magtatayo ako ng computer shop. I'll start with 10 units. Bibili ako ng 16-port switch. Pwede na ba yon? Sasabihin mo sa una, yes, pwede na yon 16-port. Or 24-port na. Sige, 24-port na para um, later on, pwede ko siyang sabihin na dadagdagan ko yung mga units tapos magiging 20 units na yan plus the server 21 plus other na gusto ko pang idagdag. Eventually, na-realize mo, kailangan mo pang mag-expand ng business mo. Like, merong mga nauso sa area nyo. For example, yung mga office for rent, office space for rent daily, yung mga ganon. Usually, uso yan sa Manila eh. Imagine you have this building. Pupunta ka doon, magre-rent ka lang ng space. For a certain amount, reasonable amount, meron kang internet connection, meron kang sarili mong desk, meron kang sarili mong power outlet, tahimik yung lugar, naka-aircon pa. Diba? So, nire-rent mo lang yan per day. Usually, mura lang naman yun eh. Diba? Parang, iba nga nagpaparent, parang mga 200, 300 per day. Eh, compared sa nag-Starbucks ka, doon ka nagtatrabaho, parang mas maganda makipag-meeting sa mga ganong klase ng area. Maraming ganon. So what if you decided to create your or transform your business not just into a cafe but Also, not just a computer cafe, but also literal na cafe na gano'n. Meron ding mga ino-offer kang coffee na soft drinks, foods, tapos may mga office spaces. So what if gano'n? Then you are approximating na yung isang room na ni-rent mo sa tabi mo dahil nga nabakante, eh, aabot ng let's say 20 office space na pa for rent. Ilalagyan mo lahat yun, mabibitin na yung switch mo. So, when you're buying a switch, consider port density. Consider what you visualizes na mangyayari in the near future. So, gaano ba karami yung mga ino-offer ng mga high-end switches, yung mga enterprise switches? Actually, ayan, yan, nandiyan naman sa ano nyo. Hindi pa Nexus yan Catalyst 6500, around 1,000 switch ports. So kung imagine that ganun kalaki. If you are dealing with a big building, ayaw mo naman na, 'di ba? Maraming switches kang pinagtabi pinag-connect lang. If it's stackable, okay lang. But of course, if it's a big company like that, and then it's a big building like that, mag-invest ka ng mahal. Yung matibay, durable, tapos mataas yung port density, like yan nga 1,000. Imagine 1,000 siguro sobra-sobra na yon. And then, maglalagay ka ng maayos na cable organizer, racks, etc. Parang yun yung magiging control panel mo. Okay? So, sabi nga nila dyan, modular switches of course are usually more appropriate for large networks. So, another is forwarding rates, yung bilis, yung kahit pa gaano karaming ports, kung puro ano lang yan, puro fast Ethernet pa lang yan, ang bagal naman, di ba? So why not use gigaports na lang, gigabit Ethernet. So marami na tayong mga gigaports ngayon. Alam niyo naman siguro kapag sinabing gigabit Ethernet, alam niyo naman siguro yung pinag-uusapan natin gig, 1 gig, di ba? Gig per port. So kung 24 port yung gigabit mo, kaya niyang mag-transfer ng up to 24 gigs per second. Kasi nga, gigabit yun. Paano? Sir, paano po? Ay, i-configure mo siya na parang Ether channel, di ba? Yun yung maximum na kaya niyang i-forward. Minsanan. Okay? Kaya samantalang kung mas malaki yung ano mo, switch mo, like it's a 48 port switch, then again, it's bigger. Mas magiging ano na naman, mas magiging mataas na naman yung forwarding rate niya. Okay. So, aside from that, power over Ethernet, alam niyo na to, nakikita niyo na to. Imagine your device is being powered from somewhere out there na in-install niyo sa bubungan niyo, yung access point niyo, in-install niyo sa bubungan niyo, or let's say sa taas ng wall nung building, nung isang ano niyo, isang building niyo, walang saksakan. Parang hirap naman yata, walang saksakan, di ba? Uh, Hindi naman kasi naka-design yung building para ganon. Di ba? So, what you want to consider is, of course, a device na mayroong ganyang capability, power over Ethernet. Hindi mo na kailangan saksak kasi yung, yung LAN cable niya kaya nang magbigay ng power. Usually 5 volts power. Dumadaan na yan dun sa kable para ipa-power na niya yung device. Hindi mo na kailangan ng external power supply. So, if flexibility is of concern, malaking bagay ito. PoE. Okay? Alam nyo na yan, nakikita nyo na yan. Mga phones ngayon, power over Ethernet, antenna, mga receivers, dami. Okay, another is multi-layer switching. So, pag sinabi mo kasi multi-layer switching, meron siyang capability. Like for example, sa Cisco, yung A6 na tinatawag nila yung application, specific integrated circuits na para siyang it's some sort of parang dinaya eh. It's not actually dinaya but it's plinogram siya. Plinogram siya in a way na hindi mo na kailangan ng processing para i-interconnect yung dalawang. For example, you have here two switches, pinagpatong mo sila, yung parang stackable, di ba? Yung dating. Sa stackable kasi, pag kinonect mo sila, considered na ano na yun, considered na iisa na sila, stackable. But there are still other multi-layered switches na mayroong special port. You can connect there para pag kinonect mo sila, hindi na nila kailangan ng processing para from one device to another device. So, para na rin silang mag-iisa, okay? Mas mabilis. So, sabi nga dito, there's a definition here. ASICs along with dedicated software can streamline the forwarding of IP packets independent of the CPU. It's mostly forwarding na lang, independent of the CPU. Okay, so there's an activity here sa kanya na gawin sa packet tracer. Router requirements. Para saan ba ang router? We want to connect sa bahay na lang, di ba? Our house to the internet. Or your business from one branch to another branch. Or your business to the internet. Or even look at the ISPs. Yung mga ISP na lang na yan, they are providing a lot of interconnection to different households. They're using routers, of course, to connect these clients. So, maraming benefit, of course. You all know what a router is. Another advantage, broadcast containment. So, nakasulat naman dyan. Broadcast containment. So, we all know that packets, even if it's broadcasted, sorry, not packets, frames. Kapag binodcast yan, when somebody in your network initiates a broadcast, it will just be heard inside the network. Okay? Not outside, hindi siya lalabas. So, hindi nakakataan sa gateway yan. Another is, of course, security. Access list, di ba? Ginawa na natin before. You know how access list works. Okay. So, we have different kinds of Cisco routers. From the name itself, malalaman nyo na meron tayong branch routers, network edge routers, and service provider routers. Pangalan pa lang nila, service provider, network edge, and branch routers. So branch routers, so usually different applications from one point to another point, usually specialize sila sa ganon sa delivery ng mga traffic from one application. Not necessarily one, but a specific application para yung traffic, yung business nyo hindi magka-problema when it comes to traffic. Specialize siya dun lang. Okay? Hindi mo lalagyan ng ibang configuration. So, we also have network edge routers. Siyempre, kung itong pinag-uusapan natin, network edge, then one big concern is security, di ba? Saka yung high performance. And pag sinabi mong service provider routers, we all know what an ISP is. Anong ginagawa niya. Dapat aware ka din dun sa mga activities ng mga subscriber mo. You know their status, etc. So may mga ganong specialized na routers. Okay. There are different kinds of routers. Kitang-kita nyo sa bahay nyo to. Ito. Ayan. So, kitang-kita nyo yan sa bahay nyo. Lagi nyo ginagawa. Lagi nyo nakikita yan, pinapakialaman. Even if you don't know the password, nakakapagbigay kayo ng access sa mga kaibigan nyo. Diba? Ang dami nyo na siguro mga experience dyan sa router na yan. Usually, our exposure are those wireless routers given by our internet service providers. Unless bumili tayo, di ba? If you buy, uh, let's say, a Cisco wireless router, then that's another experience for you. Okay? TP-Link, mga ganun. Marami pa tayong mga brands. So we also have yung large routers for usually for offices. It depends on how big your office is. This example is optimal for a branch office. You don't need to use a big router like this one, the one you naka-cabinet ang dating. Okay. We also have the industrial routers. Okay. Andiyan na sa description, designed to operate in harsh, rugged environment. And we have the ASR 1000 series. So if you are into aggregations, okay, you know what aggregation is. Um, this is already good. Okay, if you are into big data center, then most probably you are looking at this kind of hardware. So those are just some of the routers na meron si Cisco. Pero not necessarily mean yan lang ang mga routers. So later on, you'll be experiencing and seeing more routers out there. Okay? So iOS, napag-usapan na natin ang iOS before. So we all know what an iOS is. Basically, uh, this is where we do the features we configure. We It's actually the software, the operating system, kaya nga OS, iOS. Operating system for these devices, switch, routers, that allows you to use the features that they are capable of. Okay? Like sa mga Cisco switches, you can do a lot of routing configuration, a lot of housekeeping, mga host name, etc., banner of the day. So remember that, just always remember that iOS resides in flash memory. Okay? And the configuration is in the non-volatile RAM and VRAM na meron tayo. And of course, ando dun din yung startup configuration. So later on, you'll be doing a lot of configuration naman. You've been doing actually a lot of configuration especially from the previous videos, di ba? How to connect to these devices. Meron tayong dalawang way, out of band and in band. When you say out of band, it's mostly you are connecting your computer to the device via cable. Okay? Gagamit ka ng console port or yung auxiliary port kung anong meron siya para mai-connect mo, and then you can do the configuration. This is usually done whenever you don't have connect or remote connection to the network or network device. So imagine you're from Tarlac and the device is found in Pampanga. So you lost connection from the device. What do you need to do? Diba? It's up to you. You can go there yourself or you can ask somebody to fix it or do some inspection there for you. So, para maayos. Okay? But look at the hassle. Masyadong hassle yung the fact that you need to go there and then do the configuration. So, in-band management, fortunately, is already in existence. So, gagamit ka na lang ng SSH or HTTPS. Huwag Telnet. If you're using Telnet, you're just passing plain text. And you know what plain text is. You can easily see all the configuration you're being sent to the router or the switch. So these are some of the basic CLI commands that we have. So later on, I'll be posting siguro sa Teams natin the the basic housekeeping. May ginawa na kami before. Basic housekeeping for you to have a list of the common housekeeping like host name, password. You want your router to have password, din, di ba? And then you also want to open the VTY line, di ba? And then etc. You want to copy the running configuration to startup configuration. You always do that. Copy run start. Okay. There are also some show commands to check different information about your routing protocols, about your uh, routing table, about your MAC table, about your iOS or iOS version, your status, or I mean the line status, the interface status to be more specific. Um, there, you you have them here. The show IP interfaces, show IP interface brief, show protocols, CDP neighbors for the Cisco Discovery Protocol. So you can easily check all the neighboring Cisco devices, and that's it. Port security, show port security address, show interfaces, show MAC address table. Nasabi ko na kanina. Um, you just need to practice them, not necessarily memorize, kasi you just need to understand them. And then once you understand them, you know na kailangan sila, you need them, you know where to find them, and you won't forget them because it's just there. You just need to use question mark, di ba? Para makita nyo silang lahat. So hindi nyo na kailangang, I personally, to be honest, I don't memorize everything in the CLI. Uh, Most of the time, I just know they exist. If I forget something, I just use question mark because I know where to find them. It's in the global configuration, diba? It's in the interface configuration, so I know where to find them. Kaya madali lang. Okay, that's the good thing about Cisco iOS. It's really very easy to do the configuration, especially if you know them, if you know how where they resides, and especially if you know that they exist, so you can easily find them. Not like programming. In programming, they're already there, the codes, but how you use them, how you create your codes is another story. So I think that's it. Uh, if you have questions, just ask them now, or later on I'll be posting this to the channel, and then you can also comment there, just in case you want to ask anything. So thank you very much.